preserved an ancient story that came down from pre-Arab times, that the builder of the pyramids was not actually Cheops or Khufu, but was a pre-dynastic king named Saurid, S-A-U-R-I-D, King Saurid, who had been informed by his seers that a catastrophic cataclysm was going to strike the earth and destroy the advanced civilization that then existed. And so in his order, the Great Pyramid and the other two pyramids were constructed as capsules to preserve their technology and their knowledge to make it through the coming cataclysm, which was going to effectively wipe out the civilization that then existed. Now, this is a story that's very different from what we're taught when we go away to school. However, this tradition has been kept alive and was preserved by the Arab historians in the Middle Ages, but it's certainly something that is not taught in Western universities or in the school system here in the United States.
I wonder if there is and will ever be a way to transmit history. Because anytime you transmit history, your meta message is also some cosmology or some angle of the history. I wonder if it will be possible to transmit a contextual, cosmological history of new knowledge based on discoveries and facts getting out that aren't allowed to seep out through the traditional school systems, including universities.
Yeah, well, you have to understand that our so-called public school system in the universities, especially here in the West, but also in many other areas of the world, are mind control systems. And remember that the victors write history. And so for the last 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 years at least, this planet has been governed by, or at least very large areas of the planet have been governed by, extremely violent nation-state systems which brook no dissent and have waged imperial warfare, whether it was the Romans or the Egyptians or the Babylonians, or after the Romans, the Muslim armies, or the Holy Roman Empire, or the Catholic Church, or then we had later empires such as the Spanish Empire, the English, British Empire, and now we have the American Empire seeking to impose its will on the world. And then there was the Soviet system during the 20th century and the Chinese communist system. So for thousands of years, if you look back through history, back through the centuries, back through the millennia, going back thousands of years, there's been one vicious, violent imperial system after another. And they each impose their will economically, militarily, politically, religiously, and also in terms of rigorously enforcing one exclusive view of history, theirs. And if you don't like it, if you don't want to go along, guess what? They'll kill you. And I'm not exaggerating. But just look at all the genocides and pogroms, and look at the burning of the library at Alexandria, for example, which happened twice, I believe, which was a precious repository of information from thousands of years ago. And this is lost for all time. Why was it burned? Well, the victors make history. And if they know there's a historical tradition that is not in agreement with the history they would like to force on people at sword point, then they'll destroy it. And that's exactly what happened.
Do you know about the schools? I can't remember the name of the school exactly at this moment. I wish I did. Rudolf Steiner schools. Are you familiar with his schools?
Yes, in Switzerland. I don't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but Rudolf Steiner, you have to understand, was targeted by the Nazis, because Rudolf Steiner also has a very, he's dead now, a very radical interpretation of history, and also the cosmology, the actual history of the universe, not only of the Earth, but of the universe, and how the universe works and is put together, and the nature of life, and all of these things. My understanding is the Nazis intended to kill him to trap him on a railroad car with hitmen at both ends with shotguns so that he couldn't escape, and whichever way he went, they intended to kill him. But because he was highly developed spiritually and very intuitive and clairvoyant and telepathic, he was aware of this plot to kill him and managed to escape it because he sensed in advance what was in the works. But yes, I'm aware of Steiner.
I would imagine that his schools would be extremely different in terms of the paradigm, the cosmology, the methods for transmitting knowledge. And I would bet that would be a complete distinction from traditional schools throughout the U.S. and maybe the world.
Yes, but that's true. And yet Steiner and people like him have been marginalized. Most people have never heard of Rudolf Steiner in our society because he's not mentioned in our schools. He would likely not be mentioned in most universities, even if he were to study European history and European philosophy. It's a fair bet that he would not be mentioned, or that if he were to be mentioned, that very little time would be given him, that he would be given very short shrift. So, but that's true about people like Steiner. He did start a school called Esoteric School. It was an offspin of the Theosophical Society. He broke with the Theosophical Society, but he, I think, was influenced by Wolfgang von Goethe, the famous German philosopher and historian of man of letters of about 200 years ago. But that's right. Steiner was a free thinker, a deeply spiritual man, and anyone who wants to Google his name and his teachings and his philosophy can learn a lot. He was a genius, really.
What do you think of Graham Hancock's and Robert Bauval's book, Underworld, The Mysterious Origins of Civilization, and Fingerprints of the Gods?
Well, I think that those are both important books. And of course, they're not the only books they've written. Each of them have written other books as well. But those two in particular use a similar approach to what Michael Cremo did, in that they don't just speculate. They adduce evidence to buttress their arguments, which are that the civilization in Egypt greatly predates and antecedes the dynastic Egyptian civilization that we're presented with when we take a tour of Egypt or read an Egyptian history book. They don't deny the reality of dynastic Egypt. That's real. It's there. You can see the evidence of it. What they say is that the history of Egypt actually goes back several thousand years preceding dynastic Egypt, 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 years. And that mainstream Egyptology will not accept, and yet they bring forth evidence that suggests that that's the case. And also, there's evidence of previous cycle of advanced civilization, in that all over the world we have these huge megalithic prehistoric ruins from remote antiquity, built on a grand scale with huge slabs of rock weighing 200 tons, 300 tons, 400 tons, sometimes 1,000 tons or more. And yet we are led to believe that people just pounded out these gargantuan slabs of stone with copper chisels and wooden mallets, and then dragged them around on hemp ropes on wooden rollers. I'm here to tell you, you can't do that. It's just not physically feasible. So there was a very advanced technology in the past with powerful machinery and sophisticated engineering abilities that would challenge some of the most advanced engineering firms on the planet today to duplicate. And yet we have firm evidence of that from thousands of years ago. It's at various sites around the planet. And beyond that, beneath the oceans, off the coasts of some of the continents, whether it be South Asia, East Asia, or other places, there are archaeological ruins beneath the sea. Now, the sea is as high as it is now because about 11,000 years ago, the glaciers and the great ice caps at the high latitudes of the Earth in the southern hemisphere, and especially in the northern hemisphere, melted.